Hi, friends. I'm glad to be with you again this week as we continue talking this month about the character trait of integrity. And remember, that one is a little bit harder to understand. Last week, we read Ferdinand and talked about having integrity is being the same on the inside as you are on the outside, no matter what others think of you. Well, this week we're going to talk about another aspect of integrity, and that is the more traditional understanding of the word, that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Or we might say, doing the right thing just because it's the right thing, even if it's hard. And we're going to read a book today, a Chinese folktale, as a matter of fact, that shows us how one young man had great integrity when he chose to do the right thing, even at great risk to himself. Before we do that, I want to teach you an art word today. And that word is vignette. Can you say that with me? Vignette. It's spelled funny. It's V-I-G-N-E-T-T-E, vignette. And to understand what a vignette is, I want you to take your hands and make a circle. Now look through my circle. What do you see? Can you see a portion of one of the paintings on my bulletin board? You don't see the whole thing, right? You just see a portion. And that's what a vignette is. It's usually a circle, but sometimes a different shape, that shows a portion of a scene or a little glimpse of something. So as you're sitting in your classroom right now, I want you to look around and see if you can see a vignette. Make your hands into a circle and look through them at a little scene. Not your whole class, but maybe you find a sunny window or somebody's cool shoes or the back of your friend's head. But look through and see that vignette. Because sometimes those little pictures tell an even bigger story. And today, the artist in our book creates vignettes for the illustrations to tell a bigger story. Our book today is called The Empty Pot, written and illustrated by an author-illustrator named Demi. And each of the illustrations is a little vignette, a little glimpse into the life of a boy who lived in China. Now, this is a folk tale, and a folk tale is a story that would have been told out loud and shared among families over generations to teach a lesson. So as you're admiring the vignettes, because the illustrations in this book are really beautiful, I want you to see if you can figure out how these stories show integrity. So join me as we read, and then we're going to create a vignette of our own. The Empty Pot, written and illustrated by Demi. A long time ago in China, there was a boy named Ping who loved flowers. Anything he planted burst into bloom. Up came flowers, bushes, and even big fruit trees, as if by magic. Everyone in the kingdom loved flowers too. They planted them everywhere, and the air smelled like perfume. The emperor loved birds and animals, but flowers most of all. He tended his own garden every day. But the emperor was very old. he needed to choose a successor to the throne. Who would his successor be? And how would the emperor choose? Because the emperor loved flowers so much, he decided to let the flowers choose. The next day, a proclamation was issued. All the children in the land were to come to the palace. There they would be given special flower seeds by the emperor. "Whoever can show me their best in a year's time," he said, "will succeed me to the throne." This news created great excitement throughout the land. Children from all over the country swarmed to the palace to get to their flower seeds. All the parents wanted their children to be chosen emperor, and all the children hoped they would be chosen too. When Ping received his seed from the emperor, he was the happiest child of all. He was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. Ping filled a flower pot with rich soil. He planted the seed in it very carefully. He watered it every day. He couldn't wait to see it sprout, grow, and blossom into a beautiful flower. Day after day passed, but nothing grew in his pot. Ping was very worried. He put new soil into a bigger pot. Then he transferred the seed into the rich black soil. Another 2 months he waited. Still, nothing happened. By and by, the whole year passed. Spring came, and all the children put on their best clothes to greet the emperor. They rushed to the palace with their beautiful flowers, eagerly hoping to be chosen. Ping was ashamed of his empty pot. He thought the other children would laugh at him because for once he couldn't get a flower to grow. His clever friend ran by holding a great big plant. "Ping," he said, "you're not really going to the emperor with an empty pot, are you? Couldn't you grow a great big flower like mine?" "I've grown lots of flowers better than yours," Ping said. "It's just this seed won't grow." Ping's father overheard this and said, "You did your best, and your best is good enough to present to the emperor." Holding the empty pot in his hands, Ping went straight away to the palace. The emperor was looking at the flowers slowly, one by one. How beautiful the flowers were! But the emperor was frowning and did not say a word. Finally, he came to Ping. Ping hung his head in shame, expecting to be punished. The emperor asked him, "Why did you bring an empty pot?" Ping started to cry and replied, "I planted the seed you gave me and I watered it every day, but it didn't sprout. I put it in a better pot with better soil, but still it didn't sprout. I tended it all year long, but nothing grew. So today I had to bring an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do." When the emperor heard these words, a smile slowly spread across his face, and he put his arm around Ping. Then he exclaimed to one and all, "I have found him. I have found the one person worthy of being emperor. Where you got your seeds from, I do not know, for the seeds I gave you had all been cooked, so it was impossible for any of them to grow." I admire Ping's great courage to appear before me with the empty truth. And now I reward him with my entire kingdom and make him emperor of all the land. Were you surprised by the end of that story? Did you have any idea why Ping's seed wouldn't grow? Well, I sure admire Ping because I think that would have been a really hard thing to tell the truth about, especially when he saw his friends growing these beautiful flowers, and especially when he thought that he should be able to do this. Wouldn't it have been so easy to lie? In fact, it was so easy to do the wrong thing that everybody else chose the wrong thing. And Ping was courageous enough to choose the right thing, even though he thought he was risking punishment by doing so. That is integrity, being honest and courageous to do the right thing no matter the consequence. Now, the good thing for Ping is that the consequence turned out that he inherited the entire kingdom. So his integrity was recognized, not by his friends at first, but by the one that mattered, right? And so today, we are going to draw ourselves in Ping's spot. We are going to create, I have to reach for my journal, we are going to create ourselves holding an empty pot within a vignette made of Chinese-inspired inspirations, just like the cover of our book. You'll notice that I've chosen similar plants that were in the illustration on the cover of the book because these are Chinese wisteria. It's a special, extraordinarily fragrant vine that grows up and over arbors, and it smells so good. And I think we should honor the Chinese culture where this folktale came from by drawing Chinese plants. So I'll teach you how to draw some wisteria. If flowers aren't quite your thing, I thought I'd also teach you how to draw some bamboo. Bamboo is a plant native to China and is really easy and fun to draw. And so you might create your vignette with wisteria or bamboo, or maybe a little bit of both. And then we're going to draw ourselves in the middle of the vignette, holding an empty pot. And this is a pretty simple drawing, but as you draw along, I want you to listen to my instructions about what I want you to be thinking about as you draw this drawing. We're going to be thinking about perhaps a time when you did something hard, even though it would have been easier to do the wrong thing. Or I want you to think about maybe a time now when you have to make the choice to have integrity and to do something hard, even if everybody else is doing something different. For this project, we're going to use a pencil, we're going to use a pen, and some markers. And we're going to use one other thing if you have it on hand. It might look like this was done in watercolor. But we're going to revisit that fun technique where we take either a baby wipe or a very damp paper towel and use our markers to create a watercolor effect. So pencil with an eraser, pen, markers, and baby wipe or damp paper towel. Grab your art journals and your supplies and join me as we draw together. All right, we're going to start by drawing our vignette. And on our book cover, the book was square, and so all of the vignettes are circular to kind of fill up that middle of the page. Because our journals are rectangular, we're going to make our vignettes an oval. So we're going to do what we almost always do, and we're going to do an invisible drawing first, just so that our brains can see where we're headed. We're going to go ahead and make a big oval. We're not going to make a teeny, teeny, tiny vignette right here or even a medium-sized one. We want to fill up a good portion of our paper. I'm going to use my pencil very lightly and start doing with my pencil what I did with my finger. Just drawing kind of a big oval. You may not be able to see that very well because I have drawn so lightly. But you see I did a fairly large vignette in the shape of an oval. And we'll come back and make that darker, but we just want to have an idea of where things are going to be. You might even come back now that you've got a good idea of where your oval is going to be and press a little bit harder. You can do that now with your pencil, or you can save it for later and do it with your pen. I'm going to do it with my pencil now just so you can see my marking. The next thing we want to do is place our main character in the middle of our vignette. And in Demi's illustration, Ping was the main character. But for our art journals today, we are going to draw ourselves as the main character. And as we draw, remember, we're going to imagine this empty pot as a symbol for a time when we did something that was hard or courageous that took integrity, or a situation now that we might be thinking about that would take integrity. Maybe you told your parents about a way you disobeyed, even though they probably would not have found out. Or maybe you're thinking about a time on the playground where there's somebody who's being bullied and you are going to stand up for them, even though nobody else is. Maybe you need to admit to yourself or to a teacher that you don't understand the lesson and that you need help. Sometimes asking for help takes integrity. There's lots of ways that we can display integrity. So I want you to be thinking about that as we draw ourselves. We're going to start off very simply with an oval for our own heads. And notice that I made it fairly small in the middle of our vignette. I think it's pretty interesting that the illustrator decided to make the people small and all of the decorations and environment a little bit more prominent. We're going to draw, so we'll start by doing our own little head right there. And it would be tempting to draw the whole body, right? But in our illustration, that most of that body is blocked by the pot. And so after doing our head, we're going to draw the pot next because we'll wrap the body around the pot afterwards. The pot is made of simple shapes. The top, that part where we can look in and see that it is empty, is just an oval with some pointy ends. So right under my head here, I'm going to draw an oval for the open part of the empty pot. Now you can make your pot any shape you want. This pot comes in and goes out and comes in and is flat, but pots are all sorts of shapes. You might just make a giant U for a pot, or you might decide that you want to do that in and out and in shape for your pot. I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll add a flat bottom, but you can create your empty pot any way you want. Maybe it's going to be more of a rectangle. Maybe it's going to be a really broad, wide, full pot. Whatever shape you want, go ahead and draw your pot. And then we see Ping's legs sticking out of the bottom of the pot, and I'm going to draw my legs sticking out of the bottom of this pot. And you'll notice that this is a fairly simple drawing. You can choose to draw your legs wearing pants, so maybe 2 little rectangles. You could choose to draw your legs with, maybe you have shorts on or a skirt on and you would just see your ankles with some socks. However you want to draw your legs is really up to you, but let's keep them simple. So I've done some pants there, and I'm just going to do some ovals for my shoes. You can go back and add details to your pants, your legs, your shoes at any point in this project. Now, I do need to be holding on to the pot because the pot is not levitating in front of me. So let's add the hands holding on to the outside of the pot. This does not have to be fancy. The way that Ping is holding it, Ping has all 5 fingers holding onto the front of the pot. So he must be holding it up against his body. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does not have to be perfect. We can add a little bit of a line for where my arm would be connected. And there we have our basic drawing. Now I am going to give myself some hair and a face, and my hair is going to look like my hair. So I'm going to come up and come down to draw my hair. You will want to draw your hairstyle, whatever you look like. And the artist kept the faces very simple. 2 little dots, a little dot for the mouth, and the little L for the nose. Now, like I said, you can go back and add detail to your person later. But let's get on to drawing some of the interesting flowers and foliage that surround our vignette. Wisteria is a vine, and it has these really cool windy, vine stems that wrap around the vignette. And so I'm going to just start with that. I'm going to start with my vine, and I'm just going to draw some wiggles around starting at the top. They don't have to be perfect, and I'm going to bring them to about there. Now you may choose to go ahead and wrap them all the way around. I'm going to leave some space at the bottom to draw some bamboo. And if you want to do the same, you can. To draw the bamboo, bamboo is just a stick that's divided into sections. And when I divide my sections, remember Mrs. Burke holds my pencil wrong, so I just apologize to all the teachers always. When I divide my sections, I'm going to make little U's because they have little joints. And that helps us to see that these sticks are round. You can even come back and bring the sides in just a little bit if you want to get an even more authentic looking bamboo. So if you want to draw bamboo, go ahead and draw those. They do sometimes get narrower as they go to the top. So I might draw mine like that and then add some little U's going up. Bamboo is hollow on the inside. And if you're ever at the American River, there's a plant that's in the bamboo family called horsetail, and you can see all of these little joints. It looks like little forests of bamboo. Now bamboo has little twigs, stalks coming off the side with leaves that look like footballs, skinny footballs or lemons. So if I'm doing bamboo, I'm going to go just add a few places with some bamboo leaves. You don't need a lot. You can choose to put them wherever you'd like. Now the wisteria is made up of these giant drops of little tiny flowers, and they're really just kind of shaped like teardrops. So I'm going to plan on doing a wisteria falling right here, some wisteria falling right here. And the way that I'm going to do that is by just drawing a line where my wisteria is going to attach to. And I am going to start by just drawing teardrops on either side. They do not have to be perfect, but I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom where I'm going to just put one final little teardrop. Now you might look at these wisteria bunches and say, but Mrs. Burke, there's more at the top. And that's right, there are. So after I've created that central line of teardrops, I'm going to come back and I'm just going to make the top part a little thicker with some more teardrop wisteria petals. I've done one, now let's do another. We'll do line down, and teardrop, 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 all the way down on either side of our vine. Remember, at the bottom we'll just do one, and then we'll go back up to the top and thicken that up a little bit. Does not have to be perfectly symmetrical. That means it doesn't have to be the same on both sides. But now we have two little wisteria tendrils hanging down. The last part of our wisteria are the leaves. And so I'm going to add just some bigger leaves. Remember, our bamboo, if you decided to do bamboo, our bamboo leaves were long and skinny. These are a little bit broader, a little bit wider. So I'm going to add some leaves. I'm going to add some little places where the vine curls, just wraps around itself. You can see some of these, like these fun little squiggles where the vine wraps and tendrils off like that. So I'm going to add a few more details, maybe another little bunch of wisteria over on the side. I'll add a few leaves to my bamboo, but I want you to go ahead and create the border of your vignette doing wisteria or bamboo or a combination of both. We'll draw together for a minute and then we'll come back and add some color. I think I'm done with my basic design of my vignette, myself holding the empty pot. And I can leave this in pencil if I wanted to. But I'm going to go ahead and trace mine in pen today because I love the contrast in the original artist's image here where there's this dark outline. You can keep yours in pencil. You could trace it with black colored pencil. You could trace it with ballpoint pen. I'm just going to use a regular old ballpoint pen, or you can trace it with Sharpie. The only thing I don't want you to trace it with is black marker because the next step involves a little bit of water and black marker would smudge. So if you want to trace yours in a dark color, join me. If not, you can fast forward until we start getting the markers out. Did you notice my last step there, where I used my almost non-existent eraser to erase my pencil lines so just my pen lines would show? Obviously, Mrs. Burke uses my eraser all the time because in art we learn from our mistakes. So this is my remaining drawing, and you may have noticed too, I've got some other places I can erase still, that as I went over with my pen, I wasn't super finicky about getting exactly on the lines. This isn't about perfection, it's just about creating something fun. So I have this ready to color, and I'm going to show you that fun little technique that we have done in the past, but it's been quite a while, where we use markers as watercolors. You may choose to color yours in just with colored pencils or with crayons or just with marker. You really can choose to color it in however you'd like. But I really loved the softness. That's hard to see without the glare. I loved the softness of this illustrator's image, how we've got dark and light purples and how the greens change colors in the leaves, kind of this soft background. And that's sometimes hard to achieve with just bright, bold markers or colored pencils. So I thought, let's play a little bit. The first thing that I did was create the vignette color. Using the broad side of my marker, remember we can draw with the tip or we can use the broad side. Using the broad side of my marker, I just went around the whole inside of my vignette and retraced that oval. Close my marker lid until it clicks, and then I grabbed a baby wipe. You can grab a damp paper towel with hardly any water in it at all, and I rubbed that color. You know what? I used a damp paper towel before, and that worked better. Let's see. Well, gracious. Here we go. Here's my damp paper towel. And I'm going to just rub that yellow in. You might choose to add a little bit of yellow just around the insides of, notice I'm not coloring, I'm just depositing some color on my vignette that I'm going to then rub with my damp paper towel and spread it around to create a little bit of that yellow background. I'm going to pause the video. I had a more damp paper towel before, so I'm going to get a little bit more water and come right back. We're always learning in the art room, aren't we? I just had to get a little bit more water on my paper towel. So my paper towel's a little more wet now. And I've blended a little bit of that yellow in to give that nice watercolor background effect. Now where we really see this take shape is on things like the flowers. So I'm going to just put in my wisteria flowers one little dot of purple in each of the petals. Sometimes I have to stop and think, wait, is that a petal or is that a leaf? I'm just putting one little dot. Some of my dots will be a little bit bigger than others. One little dot of purple in my wisteria flowers, and they look kind of neat like that, but I'm going for that soft watercolor feel that I had, that I saw on the cover of the book. And I'm taking my damp paper towel, and you can even roll your paper towel up if you want to get really specific. And I'm just wiping over the purple to create a little bit of that watercolor look. You see how that makes that soft watercolor look? And we can continue doing this. We can do this with our green leaves. You can experiment by how much green you add. Do you add a lot or just a little? You'll get different varieties of green in your leaves, depending on how much you put in there. And I'm not doing my bamboo quite yet. I'm just doing my leaves. Going back, I'm gonna twist my paper towel again and kind of create my own little brush here. Rubbing in my leaf. Now you may say, Mrs. Berg, I don't like that. I like to be able to stay right in the lines. I want to color it. That's fine. If you prefer to just color yours in, go for it. And in fact, I think in this project, there's great places to just color in. Like the bamboo, for example. I think the bamboo looks great just done with solid marker. Isn't that neat how that provides kind of a strong contrast against the soft background? Notice when I do my bamboo, oops, I guess that's going to be a leaf now. That would be a beautiful oops, wouldn't it, guys? When I do my bamboo, I'm coloring each section individually, and that helps us to see those little sections in our bamboo plant. Coloring in my leaves, maybe coloring some of those stems. Remember how I had that spot of beautiful oops right there where my marker, there we go. We're just going to make another little set of leaves like we always planned it. I'm going to take another place where I can really use that dark marker is I can come back and color over my vines. In the original illustration, the vines were purple. Yours can be whatever color you want. But I'm going to go back and trace around my vines. Back just with the purple that I'm not going to wipe with water. You may decide you want to add a little purple on your flowers, outline some things, and then we'll finish off by creating ourselves. I'm going to do my pot blue, and I'm just going to add a little bit of blue on the outside, tracing around my hands. And I'm going to take my damp paper towel and just rub that around a little bit. Going to keep my hair solid brown. And I'm pretty happy with that. If we look at these two next to each other, we've created a pretty decent vignette to remind us that sometimes our efforts feel like they're empty, but often those efforts are the right thing. Let me show you one other little fun trick. Notice in our illustration here that there are these little grasses growing at the feet. Can you see that growing at the feet of Ping's, where Ping is walking? There's a fun way to do that with our journals. If you take your green and just do a couple little dots, and then take your damp paper towel and wipe up like that, you get kind of that same feeling, that little, it's harder to see on the camera, but it gives you a little bit of that same grassy feeling. So you can play around with what you want to do wet, what you want to do dry, what you want to color in. I may add a little bit, put some color to my shoes. May choose to keep my hands and arms and face white if I want. You could color those in. This is your vignette, but it's also your journey, thinking about how your integrity may sometimes feel like an empty pot. Isn't it fun how we get to explore different cultures, different art styles, and different character traits as we read through these books and create together? Well, I'm so curious as to what might be in your pot. What did you think about while you were creating that? We'll have a lot of opportunities in our lives to do the right thing even when it's hard. And I know you're practicing that already. I'm so proud of the integrity that you already show, and I know that you will continue to have integrity. I look forward to keep exploring this topic with you as we draw together even when we're apart.